The battle over immigration enforcement, is it too aggressive or not enough? Well, that depends entirely on whom you ask. Right now in Chicago, a federal judge is questioning the top Border Patrol official over concerns about agents' aggressive tactics, while the Trump administration is demanding more arrests as it plans a major shakeup at ICE. My great panel of reporters is here, including Priscilla Alvarez, and you have some great new reporting. You can read it on CNN.com about this shakeup, because there's a lot of frustration inside the White House about the fact that there haven't been enough arrests at ICE.
Yeah, that's right. It has been pretty consistent over the last several weeks and months that the White House and Immigration and Customs Enforcement are tense. The situation is tense between them because the White House set very lofty goals at the beginning of the year of 3,000 arrests a day. Now, that is a high bar for an agency that had not been operating at those levels, and they have been just under that on most days. And so the administration has pushed out federal agents to try to bolster their efforts, and that includes U.S. Border Patrol. Here's why that matters, because now the administration and the White House in particular, as well as leadership at the Department of Homeland Security, has seen what U.S. Border Patrol does when they're on the streets. We've seen the roving patrols, for example, in Home Depots and car washes. So this has ignited a conversation within the administration to now reassign half of the field directors for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, so the head of each of these offices, with potentially Border Patrol officials. Now, my sources can't recall a time that that's ever been done before, but it gives us a
forgive me. So they're moving officials who were at the border to the interior.
And they have been in the interior, but they are moving ICE folks out so that Border Patrol officials go in. So two separate agencies, even if their missions are similar. What this tells us is that they want a more aggressive crackdown. The way that ICE has been working and has historically worked is not enough for this administration. They want to turn the page now, seemingly, with these changes. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has said that they have nothing to announce at this time. My sources say plans are not being finalized. But what we are getting indications of is a new phase here, a more aggressive one that is similar to what we've seen in Chicago and Los Angeles, which is why today's hearing with Bovino is so important.
And I want to get back to that in 1 second, but let's just talk about the politics of this, David. Just to kind of go back to a poll last month by the New York Times asking the question about deportation of immigrants living illegally in the United States. A majority, 54%, more than a majority, say that they support that. But the question of how it is done, it's a different story. The actions that they are taking, gone too far, 51%, about right, 35%, not far enough, 12%.
Yeah, I mean, that has been the story of this issue during this administration, which is there is clear support for deporting illegal immigrants out of this country broadly. But the how matters. And so when you say, Priscilla, that this signals a more aggressive approach, from a political perspective, my immediate question is, well, I see two things here about how this may play broadly politically as we approach the 2026 midterm year. One, it's a fulfillment on Donald Trump's mission to make the election about immigration and crime, not about the economy, not about prices, not about healthcare. So it's issue directional, where he has said he wants to move the conversation. But two, if the how matters and the public is skeptical of it and it gets more aggressive, is there a potential backlash here? Obviously, I'm not talking about his core supporters, but with independents and moderates who are going to be critical to Republicans trying to maintain their majorities.
Asma?
The how, I think, is really interesting. And I think of this on two fronts. One is I just recently did an interview with Mohsen Mahdawi. He's one of these people who was picked up because of free speech concerns around, Palestinian protests on campus. His case is now back in the courts because the argument is essentially over due process and whether immigrants who are in this country, legally or not, have any sort of due process and free speech rights. This is a case that is ongoing in terms of litigation, and it's one, I think, that gets at this question of how. Whether or not the American public, majority of them say, it seems, want to see folks deported, I think there is some belief in the United States historically around due process and how this is carried out.
And not to belabor this point, but the how is also important to the president. The president has struggled when there are farm workers that are caught up in these actions. Just this week, he said that he didn't agree with the way that ICE did their raid in the plant in Georgia, now affecting his relationship with South Korea. So this does go beyond the domestic.
I just want to give some news about the hearing that is going on as we speak. The judge Sarah Ellis, just said that the Border Patrol official who's running things there in Chicago, has to appear in court every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah, she actually started this hearing saying she wasn't going to micromanage, but she certainly just made clear that she has a microscope on Bovino and the federal agents in that city. She asked him to come every day at 6 p.m. to give a rundown of what happened that day, because there have been so many controversial confrontations between the federal agents and protesters, which was really the genesis of this lawsuit. The hearing so far has not necessarily been tense, but certainly she is concerned that her temporary restraining order on the way that the federal agents respond to protesters has been violated in some form, for example, the use of tear gas and other tactics. And the reason that everyone is paying attention to this is because Gregory Bovino is not going away. He was in Los Angeles, he was in Chicago. He's the guy the administration wants to lead the federal crackdown. So this hearing is important for Chicago and the way that the situation is handled there, but it could go beyond that.
And just, I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this are aware, he also was recorded throwing tear gas himself.
Which is why he was asked to testify, and that has been part of the exchange going on today, and how they can try to avoid those situations in the future. While again, she wants to give some discretion to the federal agents themselves.
And by the way, just to add to these confrontations, the political counterweight to this, J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, who's clearly thinking about a presidential run, has urged everyone in Chicago, take out your cameras, record everything. That he's engaging on the more confrontational battlefield that the administration is creating by urging everyone to document what
All right,
they see.
everybody stand by.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.